Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives. Hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today's guest is Dr. Torkil Færø, who is a GP, emergency physician, documentary filmmaker, author, and photographer. He has over 26 years career as a freelance doctor. He has worked all over Norway, has 100,000 consults, and thus gained a unique picture of the diseases that plague us. He has found that the causes most often found in the stressors of our lifestyle placed on our bodies. Fun fact, he has visited about 80 countries and speaks 8 languages. His book, The Pulse Cure, has also dominated the Norwegian bestsellers for over 69 weeks. I cannot wait to discuss how the Pulse Cure can help us live longer, healthier, and happier lives. Welcome, doctor. Please, in your own words, introduce yourself and tell us who are you and what do you do?
Thank you, Yegi. Very nice to be here on your podcast. Yeah, as you said, I'm a Norwegian doctor and a photographer and author. Live in Norway. I'm working all over the country, enjoying a kind of a free life, writing books, traveling, sailing, enjoying my life, which was also the reason why I became a doctor in the first place, actually. But also to be able to observe life, from the front lines, to see how people live and what makes them happy, what makes them sick, and so on. And of course, during a 26-year career, you learn something. And for the last 5 or 10 years, I've actually been an author, writing several books. And as you said, the latest book called The Pulse Cure is about how we can use wearables and track our heart rate to keep our stress balance in order so that we can perform well and stay healthy and have well-being so that we don't stress ourselves out, and probably with entrepreneurs, and I'm an entrepreneur myself, I know you're kind of prone to get into a burnout situation, getting into, to struggle with your stress balance. And then we will have these tools that I will explain about, and we will talk about on how you can manage your stress levels.
Well, before we dive right into all of those, I have a million questions about the trackables and how to overall live a healthier lifestyle and for longevity as well, right? Because all of that's going to help us achieve a longer, healthier lifestyle. But before anything, can you tell us, was there anything that triggered you to switch gears from practicing being a doctor to saying, okay, now I need to just focus on myself. I've been helping all these people all these years. Now let me focus on myself and figure out what's going to make me happy.
Yeah, actually, the twist in my life came from when my father died. That was 10 years ago. He was 73 years old. Me and my family, we were out on the round the world trip sailing. We were just about to go through the Panama Canal. Suddenly this trip is halted. My father dies within 3 months. I take a look at myself in the mirror and understand that my health is not optimal. I had been concerned about to finance the travel, how to organize 4 years of sailing. And suddenly I find myself...
So you guys were on the road for
That was a plan. That was a plan. And 1 year into this, everything stopped, and I had to kind of start my life all over again. And I saw that I wouldn't get anything for free from my genes. And I just turned around and thought that, okay, how can I change my lifestyle so that I can live as long as I can and enjoy life, have well-being, have my health. And I saw that there have been so much new research, so many new findings that we could take control of our health because we didn't learn that in medical school. We learned how to diagnose and treat diseases, but we didn't learn how to create health. And this I understood very quickly, that we knew so much more about lifestyle, the importance of sleep, importance of diet, importance of exercise, the importance of being able to manage your stress levels and so on. Everything that I talk about in the book, The Pulse Cure. So anyway, I lost 40 pounds, started
Wow.
exercising, started doing smarter choices, quit drinking a couple of glasses of wine every day, and so on. And for the last 5 years, I've had the aid of using wearables to track these differences, because everything that is smart to do health-wise, it will show in the heart rate. If you do
Hmm.
something bad for your health, it will be seen in the heart rate. And the wearables now can detect small differences that we cannot feel ourselves. But through the watches and the rings and so on, the smart rings and artificial intelligence, it's like having a dashboard to your own physiology, so that it's so much easier to navigate your stress levels when you can see it, in
So
the apps.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. So are we mainly tracking our heart rate and related to stress, or are we tracking any other data that's more related to your book?
Yeah, we're tracking the heart rate, but it's not the heart rate itself. Like if you have a 60 or 70 or 80 in pulse, in heart rate, we're tracking heart rate variability, which is
Mm.
almost like looking at the heart rate with a magnifying glass and like a microscope, so to speak. So that the variation between heartbeats is the most important thing, because that will show if we are in the stress state, the sympathetic state of our autonomic nervous system, or in the relaxed state, the parasympathetic state of our nervous system. And we need to have a balance there. If we are in the stress mode for too hard, too long, we will get sick. We're not constructed for that kind of intensity. So our
Can you
immune
build,
system needs more downtime.
I'm sorry again, can you build your tolerance to stress?
Yes, absolutely. You can improve your tolerance, mainly by physical exercise. So your VO2 max, your fitness level has a lot to say on how much you can tolerate from any stressor,
So
both
it's
mental and physiological. Yeah,
okay, yeah, that was going to be my next question. So that would be more physical fitness would help us tolerate more mental stress.
that's
Now,
right.
is there a way to kind of see if it's kind of like your endurance with stress as far as I don't know, I guess with practice and resilience mentally? Or is it very clear with the research these days that if you are physically fit, no matter what other variable, you're going to be more, you're going to be better off with managing your stress levels?
Yeah, because you will have better working mitochondria, better working hormonal system. Everything in your body will work more smoothly. Because our
I
physiology is developed, in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago, when we were moving, when we were out in the nature, when we were sleeping at night, when we were fighting or hunting when we had to, and we relaxed when we could. So, and the more we can approach this state of living, the better our cells and our nervous system works, and the more we can tolerate of pressure.
I see. Now, we pretty much started diving into the topic, but I do want to get to know you a little bit better before I ask you more detailed questions. Um, what is one thing that most people don't know about you?
Yeah, I got the list from you about these interesting questions. And of course, most people don't know anything about me. But what the ones that know me don't know, maybe that I won Jeopardy. I was in
Oh,
the
that's
game show many,
exciting.
many years ago and won Jeopardy. And yeah, used the money to learn photography. And yeah, and I became very interested in photography. So it kind of started the journey that I'm on, still on.
So, why photography? It's very interesting because you have the medical background and then author. That kind of makes sense. But how did the photography come in the picture with your interests?
That was because I was a traveler, and I found out that on a travel, when you're out there with a camera, it's kind of a passport into meeting other people, to
Huh.
contacting people. Can I take a picture of you and you or your family? And it's a kind of was kind of a method of being on the road, being a traveler. And I also got interested in improving my photography and becoming a better photographer. And I've had several exhibitions. I've published fine art books on photography. I've taught more than 60 photographic workshops all around the world, like in Cuba, Ethiopia,
Wow.
Sri Lanka, Morocco, all over. And so yeah, so I became interested in that. And then I wrote a book called The Camera Cure, because the principles of succeeding, they are the same. Whether you want to succeed as an entrepreneur or as a doctor or as an author or as a photographer, it's the same mindset. It's the same way to do things. It's some eternal principles on how to do that. And you can practice them taking a picture. So taking a picture is a small but manageable problem,
Uh-huh.
small but manageable opportunity. And the way you approach that opportunity, you approach everything else. So I wrote that book, The Camera Cure, with like 55 different tasks. It's only Norwegian, unfortunately, but it's also a bestseller in Norway. And that was kind of the starting point also for the Pulse Cure, because I understood that when we are out photographing, hunting for pictures, being together with other people on a workshop, we are using our nervous system. And so this is why I got interested in the nervous system, and
Huh.
then by and by into the Pulse Cure.
That's actually really amazing how life literally leads you to your next thing. And I love people who can kind of listen to their intuition and take the next step or take the next pivot into what they're meant to be doing. And that sounds like how you've been living your life. And I love that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very much into using my intuition to listen to my gut feeling on what to do. So I always trusted that. And then, of course, as I've been living this free life, never having a steady job because I would never want that, then I've been in the position to take opportunities as they come, you know. So many people will be locked down in their work, and even if opportunities come their way, they have their strings attached, they can't take the opportunities, and then you stop looking for them. But I've been living like this all my life, so I
So
can
let
see an
me
opportunity coming. Mm.
let me ask you a question that I know a lot of my listeners would want to ask you right now. So how about finances? So anytime we don't have a steady job or steady career, of course, people get nervous and they have the fear of losing their, lifestyle because of the finances part of it, because you don't know when your next
Mm.
paycheck's going to come. How have you been kind of okay with that roller coaster? And how have you managed to get to a point where you can live a free lifestyle?
Yeah, that was a good choice of becoming a doctor then, because and particularly in Norway, I'm not sure how it is in the US, but in Norway, it's a rural country. Many people live in the districts. Next week I'm going up north of the Arctic Circle in an island with 1,000 people, and I will be on call for 1 week, 24/7. So I can do a lot of work in 1 week, and then I have enough money. I could, go off for like 2 months somewhere
Wow.
and just go traveling and do whatever. So I've been lucky in that sense that I can make a lot of money and I can do it when I want to. So every day I work, I have chosen myself, okay, I want to work that week in that place. And I enjoy the job also, you get to meet the fishermen of the north, you get to meet the farmers in the middle of the country, and you get to meet the city people where I live. So it's been kind of sitting at the front row of life and to see, you meet patients from pregnant women, before people are born until after they're dead, and you often
Mm.
see the people with their family. You understand the connections, and you see how, your parents will form their children, and so on. So the family constellations, you understand how things work.
That's beautiful. Now, you've also been to many countries. So you earlier I asked you off the record if you've always lived in Norway, and you said that's been your base, your home for a long time. But in the past 5 years or so, you said you've been to about 80 countries. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
or I've been traveling probably for, I would think, somewhere between 5 and 7 years, probably more, but spread out over time.
Yes.
So
Now, my question to you is, you've been to so many different countries. Why stick to Norway? I'm just curious.
because it's easy. Of course, I have a family here, and although my family have been traveling a lot, sailing a lot, we've been taking the kids out of school, doing homeschooling on our boat. Norway is a beautiful country. So it's a good place to have a home base. And of course, it's a
Sure is.
good income and so on. But I want to, now that the kids are soon moving out of the house, then I will be traveling a lot more. So then probably I'll be 5 years in Norway and 20 years, outside Norway. So
That's beautiful. Honestly, that's amazing to be able to achieve. One of my dreams is to be able to do that with my kids, maybe in the next 5 years. My kids are super young, so that's kind of what I also plan on doing, making them be homeschooled and just travel. Not sailing. I'm not a water person, but
yeah.
planes and all that. But that's
Yeah, and
beautiful that
that's
you've been able to
important, I think, because to get your kids to experience the real world and not just see the world through their iPads or their
Yeah,
screens, so get some wind in their hair and yeah.
definitely. Now let's track back to some of the questions to get to know you better. So you said you were able to live your free lifestyle. I always like asking my guests, so what does a fulfilled and happy life look like to you now? And how did it look different maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, for me, my life has been the way that I want it to be for the last 30 probably years, and that would be to be in control myself so that I decide what to do and when to do it, of course, with my family, of course, and wife and so on. But that I'm in charge, that I'm in control. I do things that are interesting and meaningful, and I get to satisfy my curiosity and get to understand more and experience more. I try to live like I try to pack, like 10 years of experience into 1 year,
How do you do
and
that?
I just by variation, by doing different things. So I don't get stuck in one mode. So if I've done one thing for a certain amount of time, and become maybe pretty good at it, I want to do something new and challenge myself and put myself in another situation and another, yeah, see the world from another vantage point. So, for example, now I'm suddenly find myself as a celebrated author, with a bestseller, everybody contacting me every day, from the media. Tomorrow I'll be on TV. They called me today. I'm on, and that is, of course, for me as a normal doctor, totally new situation to handle and with its own challenges. And yeah, so
Now,
that's how I do it.
Now, we've talked about, well, you mentioned that no matter what you're doing, if you're a photographer, you're an author, you're a doctor, it takes a certain mindset or skill set in order for you to be successful. And you've quickly learned that even through the lens of the camera. What are some of those things that you would advise our audience to practice or to pick up as traits or as, I guess, mentality in order for them to also be successful?
Yeah, so that would be to accept that in the beginning of something you will not be very good at it, and accept that and enjoy the journey while you're improving, and not to seek perfection, but just do it, of course. To accept that you will make mistakes, and maybe the best way to make better choices is to make more mistakes. So of course this is common wisdom, this is what everybody would say also, and to dare doing new things and to dare doing what you fear, so that what you fear is often where you need to go and not something you need to shy away from, things like that.
So getting out of your comfort zone, doing something new, facing your fears, it sounds like it's a key thing in your success or in your life practice currently. Now, how does that work with stress levels? Because I personally know anytime I do anything new or get myself in a new situation or want to switch gears, it is very stressful. But I'm not quite sure if this is good stress or bad stress. Now, what advice or what are your thoughts about?
Yeah, my thoughts about that is that we need stress. We need to challenge ourselves and we need to push ourselves. What is more, the problem is that we are under recovered. We don't have enough focus on sleep and rest and taking time off. So that is more the problem. So we need to
And
find this balance then.
yeah,
And the problem is that it's not only mental stress that will stress our systems, it's just as much physiological stress.
I see.
Alcohol, food that you can't tolerate, having a poor fitness level that you're not able to run for 1 kilometer, you will be totally, worn out, many of these things. So stress comes from maybe surprising sources. It can be food that you don't tolerate, really.
Wow. Honestly, I'm so glad you mentioned that because even for me, I've never sat down and really thought about what's causing me stress, but I've never ever considered, hey, it might be my health. Overall, I think I'm a pretty fit person, but I've never tracked or looked at anything. But I've never thought, hey, something could be off because of my physical health. I've always thought, okay, what's going on mentally? What's causing me mental stress? So I'm glad we're talking about this now. And I think it's a good into our actual topic about the trackers and your book with everything that we can do to live a better lifestyle. Can you dive in for me and tell us how these trackers work and what it could do for us?
Yeah, so these trackers, and then I'm talking about primarily the Garmin watches, that would be the best tool. You can also use the Apple watches, the Oura rings, the Whoop bands, and many other gadgets or devices. And what they do is that they track this heart rate variability that I talked about, the good variation between heartbeats when you're in the relaxed state and the low variation between heartbeats when you're in the stress state. And they can track it, in real time and then accumulate it throughout the day and night. So that, and together with artificial intelligence and millions of people using them, they can give you an answer on whether your lifestyle in the intensity of your life is sustainable over time and compatible with good health. So with this kind of a dashboard, kind of a speedometer, you're able to regulate. You're suddenly able to see that, okay, this is too much. I can't do all of these things together and have a glass of alcohol and eat this kind of food. And then I need to change these things. And the basic thing is to make sure that you sleep well enough, that you have 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, or as long as you can, given the circumstances. And to make sure, and the wearables will show whether you have a restorative sleep. Because even if you drink alcohol, for example, you would sleep for maybe 8 hours, but it would be a non-restorative sleep. You would be very stressed throughout the night because the alcohol will be changed into acetaldehyde, which is very toxic, and your liver and your whole body has to work hard while you're asleep to get rid of that acetaldehyde. So when you wake up in the morning and feeling, sluggish, it's not just a feeling, it's your body that has been through a marathon while you were asleep.
Wow. And honestly, we don't think about that. Like you said, if we are just having maybe one glass of wine at night to kind of unwind, take the edge off at the end of our hard work day, we don't think about that. Maybe that one glass of wine, because also a lot of people believe a glass of red wine is good for your heart. Now, is that still the case, or is this?
Yeah, that's already old, but that is what I said to myself, because I used to have 2 glasses of wine every day. And that was the doctor's orders. That was the recommended amount of alcohol for men and 1 glass for women. And that is because in the parts of the world where people live longer, they had those 2 glasses of wine. But it wasn't the wine that made them live longer, but that they were social, that they have friends and good relationships. And now we know more about the importance of that. So it wasn't the alcohol in itself. And even people, when I haven't met one person that has started using the wearables and have not cut down on their alcohol consumption, because you will see it immediately. That is not stress. So and I used to think that way, to wind down, but it's very stressful throughout the night, and you'll ruin your sleep.
Look at the data you're saying through the trackers.
Yeah. And then, of course, when you see it on the trackers, it's more motivating to find the right choices when you see the result in real time, So it's kind of, you get to see your bank account, how much things cost,
Yes.
So, and also for better sleep, it's important to not eat too close to bedtime. So maybe stop eating anything, maybe 3 hours before you go to bed. That is kind of a good choice for most people.
Even just a little piece of snack still counts. You want to be fully fasting 3 hours, just water.
Yeah, right.
Now, Since we're on the topic, I know you have about 8 strategies that give you 20, that can give you 24 extra years to live. That really was a trigger for me to be like, okay, what are these 8 things? Am I doing it? Let me assess myself. Can you, because these days we have access to so much and everybody's just trying to do everything and anything to look younger, feel younger, live longer. So what, in your opinion, what are those 8 things?
Yeah, so they're not my opinion, but it's the result of a research from the US veterans. I
I
think
see.
it's like 700 veterans that they have done the research on, followed them for like 15 years or so. And they have found out that if you start the 8 strategies from when you are 40, you will live on average 24 years longer than if you don't do these things.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of obvious, you know, you need to exercise, you need to have good sleep, you need to have good nutrition, you need to be able to manage your stress levels, you need to drink little alcohol, you need not to smoke, you need to have good relationships, and you need to not use opiates, you know, like Oxycontin and those kind of painkillers. So once you can do these things and do kind of a normal amount of focus on these things, then you will live 24 years longer. And that is also my clinical experience because I get very curious when I get patients, you know, who live and seem to be thriving into their 90s, and they have done these things. And when I see people that are really sick before they reach 70, they have done the exact opposite. They
Opposite.
have not been sleeping, they have been stressing, they have not been physically active, they have been smoking, they have been drinking, they've had poor relationships, and so on. Been using Oxycontin and those kind of painkillers. And if you can cross off on all these 8 kind of non-strategies, you know, then you would be lucky to pass 70 years old. So it's a real finding, I think, also. So
Wow.
and what's good is that all of these strategies are free. It's nothing of these that cost money, you know. So a lot of it's even cheaper, you know. You can use your feet instead of taking your car or transportation, and you could be fasting instead of eating and drinking water instead of alcohol and so on. So it could even turn out to be cheaper than the
Yeah.
other options. It's once you get sick that your healthcare will depend on your wallet. You know, the strategy for avoid getting sick is free.
Now we want to have our, you said nervous system, right, be working well for us in order for our bodies to also heal and do all of the good things for us. Overall, we're tracking our heart rate or the variability of it. Now, if I track it and I see like a certain pattern, can you give me like a example of what that data can tell me? And what action I could take with that data. So let's say today I pick up the book, I read it. I know that's going to break it down for me and how to kind of analyze the data a tracker would give me. But just in short, in summary, your top 3 things you want to share. If I have my data, so let's say I was wearing an Apple Watch, I could pull my data. I see my heart rate variability. Can you give us some examples of what we're looking for and what action can we take today?
Yes, so you would get a measurement. Often the watches will need some time to adjust to your heart rate variability, to your baseline. Once they do that, you can see that when you do certain things, it will affect your heart rate variability overnight. So you will get a measurement in the morning from most of the watches, which is kind of a readiness factor. You know, so how ready are you for this day? How much forces have you saved up during the night that you can spend today? And all the trackers usually have some kind of number. You know, you get like 80 score, 90 score, or down to 50 if it's been a poor night's sleep and alcohol and a party and so on. And you will quickly realize that there are some patterns that if you do certain things, it will have a poor effect on your recovery for the next day. And for you as women, of course, the menstrual cycle we haven't talked about yet, but the menstrual cycle will have a visible effect on the heart rate variability. So for so many women, the week before menstruation, you will see that there's a huge dip in heart rate variability. So that the PMS is not just a feeling or a mood, it's a physiological load on your system that is visible, that you can see it. And the dip in heart rate variability is as strong, I can see, as having COVID. So
Wow.
for many women, it's like having COVID like once a month, of course.
Yay!
But the good thing then is that once you see that, you're able to mitigate the stress. You're able to see that, okay, for that week, I need to not push myself so hard. I should do yoga or meditation instead of a hard workout. You should pay more attention to your sleep, and you should not fall for the temptation to eat a lot of chocolate, or drink
Don't
wine
think
or
of
whatever
that.
to try to. That is not the way to mitigate the stress. And then you can actually get rid of the symptoms of PMS. So that's been a huge relief for so many women
Wow.
that when they have this kind of speedometer, that they're able to down-regulate the stress in that period, the
And
week
how do
before
we do
menstruation.
that? Exercise? You said yoga, meditation.
Yeah, breath work, maybe cold showers, and trying to relax more,
Take
you
it
know.
more easy.
Read a book, don't go maybe to that party that week, save it for the week afterwards. Once you know from your cycle and can predict, in future, you can avoid putting the hard activity, the presentation, the lecture in
Yeah,
that
on your
week.
body.
Yeah. So, and with a little bit of planning there, you can do a lot.
Wow. So really work with your natural body's energy overall as well, not
Yeah.
by, and that we can see based on the data that the trackers give us.
Yeah. And stress, particularly for women, because the problem for women is that when they have too much stress, it will affect their whole hormonal system. The female hormones, progesterone and estrogen and all of this. So they will kind of have more symptoms than men from stress.
I
So
see.
I would say that from the patients coming to me with stress-related symptoms, I would say at least 80% would be women.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and once they are able to downregulate the stress to get it into more manageable, load on their systems, they get rid of a lot of the symptoms. And so much also the reproductive health for women has
That
a,
was the
has
next
a
question I was gonna have, because especially in the US, I don't know anywhere else around the world, more and more women are having problem conceiving naturally. So
Mhm.
that was the next thing I was gonna ask you, because this never
Yeah.
even used to be a thing. Like back to my mom's grandma's days, they never even thought about, hey, what if I can't have a baby? It was more
Hmm.
people were already expecting, okay, I'm a woman, I'm going to be able to conceive.
Yeah.
Now, do you think our current lifestyles today with the stress, besides the stress, anything else is affecting that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can Google fertility or infertility and heart rate variability, and you will see that there's a connection.
Wow.
So, the stress system is kind of like it's probably an ancient, our operative system, like the computer is very old. So, if there was a lot of stress on the savannah 200,000 years ago, it was not the time to get a baby.
Mm,
So it's kind of a down regulation of the ability to get pregnant if there's too much stress. So it's visible that, for example, for the IVF assisted fertilization, that if you have a better heart rate variability, there's a larger chance of getting pregnant and also without to conceive in a normal way. And also
interesting.
endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome is also have a connection to heart rate variability. So they are also because the stress, really disturbs the female hormone production, and it disturbs, in more detail, it disturbs the macrophages. They disturb the kind of cells that kind of govern, the ovaries and the reproductive system. So it's and they are very, very sensitive to stress. They don't work as they should when there's too much stress in your life.
Now, another question I have for you is what if we're tracking all of this? What's a healthy way of doing it to not get stressed out about it? Because I could see somebody like me. I'm a pretty all or nothing type of person. I have not tracked it, but now I'm very curious. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go buy myself one of these trackers. And I want to be the best I can be, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
what's a good place to start for somebody who's never tracked it and to make changes in their lives?
Yeah. So that would be to pretty much accept what you find and not be too stressed about it. And if you are too stressed about it, it's usually a sign that you are easily stressed by many other things, and that you may need to have another approach to that in general, and to be able to see your numbers and not get too much, disturbed by them. And then slowly and slowly, very patiently, start getting your level into a more manageable stress level, and accept that it can take time. And for many people, who are in the burnout situation, they have fatigue, that can be a very long process. And often their impatience, and they will often have easily frustrated, and that has often been one of the problems that have led them into this situation. But it's not the way to get out of it. So you have to be kind of have an accepting mindset about it, and be patient, and that can be a problem for many people. But most people will think that this is just fun, that suddenly you have an insight into your nervous system and your physiology that is kind of a gamification of your health. And most people think, okay, this is interesting. They can see,
Yeah,
okay, if I do this, then that happens. And they just will be
fun.
curious and think it's fun. But of course, 80, around 80% of the diseases that we treat as doctors, they come from too much stress and a chronic low-grade inflammation. And that means, of course, that so many people, when they start tracking their systems, see that they have too much stress in their lives. And the solution then is not to throw away the watch. The problem will not go away. So it's kind of they have to deal with it. It's a reality check, and keeping a high stress level over time, will have its price and risks for even the most serious diseases, like cancer and heart disease and autoimmune diseases and dementia and Parkinson and what have you
Mhm.
over time.
Now we said a managed amount, or we need some stress, right? Also going back to some things that are more talked about these days, like the cold plunges, saunas, the cryo, all these things. What are your thoughts about that, and how does that tie into the inflammation? So we do hear a lot of people talking reduce inflammation. Reduce inflammation is so important, but why is it important for us to be more healthy?
Yeah, we want to be more healthy because that is also good for performance. So it's the same strategies that you need to have well-being and health and longevity and performance. So I think everybody wants that. And
Of
if
course.
you don't have it, you're not very happy. So, and it's the inflammation that is the problem. When you do the wrong things, your body is full of circulating cytokines, it's called. It's a inflammation in your system that will manifest in all the different organs in the body, including the brain. It will give you brain fog, lack of concentration, stress, and all of these things. So it will make you sick, and what can dampen this inflammation is cold. For example, cold plunges, breath work, and when you can see it on the watch, the effect of it, then suddenly it's motivating to do that cold shower or cold plunge, because you can see that after that, maybe for hours, your body will be in a calm state,
Huh.
which is why athletes, use it a lot. But we that are stressed from other causes can also use it. So that's my favorite. If I've been out having a party and having 4 or 5 glasses of wine, you know, I can go into the cold water and
Offset
mitigate
it a
that
little
stress,
bit.
offset it, really. Yeah. So cold is good, and also to be a bit more cold, put down the temperature in your bedroom and so on. And because heat is very stressful. You live in LA. It's probably, if it's really hot in the summer, if you're outside, you don't
It
feel
is.
like
I'm
doing
not
very much, do
happy.
you?
No, I'm not
Yeah,
happy at all. I feel it. I clearly feel it that I'm just more angry and agitated.
yeah. Yeah, you're more stressed, and you would see it immediately on your heart
Yeah,
rate monitor because your body would struggle hard to get rid of the heat to try to get the temperature down. Yeah.
I see. Now, I'm very curious because I have young kids and toddlers, like a 4 or 5, 4-year-old, does not know how to communicate exactly what they're feeling. Can we track their heart rate? How is food related? Because I also know food and vitamins is also related in their moods and behavior and also sleep. What are your thoughts on young children? Can we monitor them to help them in any better way or just let them grow up?
Hmm. I don't know. Probably it could be possible. I don't think it has been done, so I don't think there's any research or
There you
many
go. Your
people. I
next
don't think many people
project.
have done that. So I know that many people, that are, that have severe autism, that have problems communicating, when they get the wearables, they can see what kind of situation will stress them. So it's kind of a way to reveal their stress levels in certain situations that can be very useful.
Interesting.
But I think probably children it will be. But I think also that if we put trackers on children in school, we could probably see who would struggle with spending time in school. And for so many people, I see that as a doctor, for so many people, school is terrible. It's
Wow.
like a prison. It's like a
Causing them
horrible
a lot of
time.
stress.
Yeah. So a lot of stress, and probably you would be able to see that who would profit from being in school and who would profit from kind of not being in school and
Yeah,
try to find
having
some
more
other
of the
solution to
freedom.
learn. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Um, my next question to you, we are running a little bit short on time, so I'll try to wrap up. But actually, is there anything else you want to cover for our audience or from your findings and research?
No, I think we've been into a lot. Of course, there's more details in my book and so on, but I think we've been into most of the areas. Absolutely.
One other thing too, my last question is the food. When should we eat and what should we eat? Obviously, we hear, okay, eat healthy, eat the vegetables, non-processed, just the common things we hear. But is it different for everybody based on their heart rate variable? Is that what we're looking at? Or is it like one formula of what everybody should eat and when they should eat it?
There would be individual differences. So some may tolerate gluten better than others and milk proteins better than others and so on. But most of the time, people find that ultra-processed food, and particularly the kind of food that you get addicted to, the ones that are by the end of by the counter, the cashier, that you get tempted to put in your bag, chocolate and candies and all that stuff. That seems to be the worst. Crisps and chips and those kind of things. And you also need to be wary of when you eat, as you said. So having a restricted feeding window of maybe 8 to 10 hours, that is for most people very good. And for so many people with digestional problems, bloating, IBS symptoms, and so on, when their night fast gets longer, they allow their intestinal system to get time to recover because the whole digestive tract is a very vulnerable system. And when we eat food that is not really food, processed food, it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of a food-like substances, engineered by the food industry to make us addicted to it and want to eat more, but they certainly don't have our
Don't
health
do anything,
in
yeah,
mind.
for us.
So that is not good. But if you can do a lot by extending your night fast, and then your body will do the autophagy, that it will start to eat its senescent cell, its worst cells, the cells that are kind of on the verge to become cancer cells, and it will start by eating them in
Mm.
recycling kind of the poorest cells and using the material for new cells.
So
So
that's why the
that is a good effect from
food is
fasting.
really good. Yeah.
And fasting combined with exercise. So You don't necessarily need to fast for like 3 days, but if you can extend your night fast and then do exercise, on an empty stomach, then you can kind of do that process more effectively.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so my last question to you is, how do we measure? So we were able to measure our heart rate with the trackables, and I'm sure a lot of other stuff too. But I was curious, is there a way to measure our inflammation?
It's an indirect measure of the inflammation. So heart rate variability is kind of a measure of the state of our immune system and the state of the inflammation. So it's a proxy. It's not the inflammation level itself, but high inflammation will be shown in the heart rate. Yeah.
I see. Interesting. All right. Well, I will close with asking you your last piece of advice for our audience, or your last words of wisdom, and where can they find you and your work?
My last words of wisdom, that would be that you can take more control of your health than maybe you thought you could, or at least what I thought I could, even as a doctor, that so that's what I try to, teach others to be able to do the same, to take charge of their own health and avoid getting sick, avoid that I will see you, in my doctor's office. That would be the most important thing. And they, of course, can find me. They can find the book, The Pulse Cure, anywhere, on Amazon. It's a normally published book. It's also an audiobook and an ebook, so you could download it to your iPhone or Kindle or whatever. And we also have a website where I have a lecture. It's called thepulsecure.com. You can see a 1 hour long lecture where I show you in detail these things that I'm talking about. And I'm also on Instagram, Dr. Torkil, Dr. Torkil. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Doctor, for your time, for your advice, all the work that you're putting out there for the better being of the humankind. And until next time, thank you to our audience and listeners, but have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.